Okay, Patrick Singson. Have you read here before, Patrick?
No, this is my first time.
Yay, we're perfect.
I think I've ever been applauded for being a virgin. So first.
All right, after a second night in Santa Fe, I have this entire boondocking area all to myself. I don't know if there's another camper, and this is acres of free boondocking, free camping. Yes, there's nothing here. There's no facilities, if that's what you're thinking. There's no water, there's no toilets. But, you know, I'm 15-20 minutes from a Walmart. And, you know, there's plenty of, like, dead wood around if I wanted to create a fire. I'd hang out here for a long time, but there's a lot more of the country to see. So I think I'm going to head down south to Albuquerque and then make my way to, let me see, probably Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, before heading north by northwest. Try to get to Moab by Thursday. I think it's only from Truth or Consequences under 8 hours, so, you know, if worst comes to worst, and I really like Truth or Consequences, I'll just make a day drive of it. Read some poetry down in Santa Fe. I think I was the youngest person reading there. It was all a bunch of senior citizens, but they were awesome poets. It's a lot different than the slam crowd. Their appreciation is not shown by whoops and hollers. It's just more like a I really like that, actually. So yesterday was a little bit of a challenge. I had a couple of fuses blow, and then my cigarette lighter for the engine, the starter battery, that crapped out. So I tried the fuses for that, and switching them out didn't work, so there's something else going on. And had the same issue for one of the wires back here, the fuse blew, so I'm going to replace that. But I had replacements. I was able to put another cigarette outlet on my dual battery setup here, and then run it to my inverter, and then I run everything off my inverter. So it's good to have backups, let's put it that way. I don't know if I had the foresight for it. I just was experimenting with a lot of things, and I just happened to have extra parts, and then figured it out. And then I reorganized the back a little bit and got rid of some things. I think the lesson there was that a lot of people would give up at a certain point with a little bit of adversity. But really, unless it's something, I don't know, really drastic, they're just minor annoyances. And as simplistic as it sounds, they are learning lessons. And so you work through them, and then you improve things a little bit. You find out what works and what doesn't, and then you continue on. I always go through an adjustment period whenever I start something, like when I went to South America or when I went to Southeast Asia. There's definitely this period where it's like, oh man, I just want to go home. It's like, things were all so convenient. I knew where everything was, and now I can't find anything. And you would think in this small of a space that you'd be able to know where everything is, but that only comes with experience. So, like, say, patch tape. I had no idea where my patch tape was, and after an hour of looking for it, I just went, well, just buy some more. They make more of it. It's not that expensive. So That's another lesson. It's just, do what you can to get through it. And gradually, piece by piece, things improve. And then all of a sudden, you're the master of this particular type of traveling. So that's kind of the point for me to do this. Adventure, learning, trying to master something that I know I'm not the master of. And so I tried to do a couple shakeout trips before just to make sure systems work, but you really aren't confronted until you actually do it. So like the shakeout trips were maybe like 2-3 days, but when you're going for weeks, even months at a time, that's a totally different ballgame. So I'm sure this is just the start. The art of the start. The start of a 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. I think I just mangled that, but anyway, something like that. I'm at the Petroglyph National Park, I think. I don't think it's a monument. I don't know. This is my first time here. Anyway, yeah, they have a bunch of petroglyphs here, dating all the way back from, I think, 1300s. And then they also have a few that were probably placed by Spanish. They have the Spanish crosses. Anyway, I got the National Monument passport, so I can stamp each national park as I visit them. On top of the mesa top of, I think it's called Boca del Rio. You have a great view of Albuquerque.
I don't think I've ever been applauded for being a virgin. So first. Okay. New York is not new. The subways are still worms eating at the guts of the city, and I have seen it. Ghosts rising in the cold October sky brought to my knees by the towering gravestones, hundreds of stories in the air. The 100 stories of ordinary people living ordinary lives with extraordinary conclusions. Let me tell one to you. A 32-year-old actress living with 4 roommates in one Harlem flat, waiting for her one break, one face built for Chekhov, one body a die cast, leaving no impressions. She's one in a city of thousands, meeting one broken-hearted traveler, negotiating thousands of streets made familiar. A French-speaking native New Yorker for 10 years makes it so. And I have seen it, a sky lit by skylights, sushi sucked in midnight cafes, faces lit by candlelight. Young men reading angry poetry at the Nuyorican and St. Mark's. And I have seen her, a desperate woman with a hand outstretched, kachingos for the latest fix. And I have seen it, a gravesite tourist trap selling tchotchkes for the passerby. Ground zero, where the tourists go. Buy your tchotchkes here, a photo of the dead for you, a big fat hole in the ground. 16 acres to bury the dead on hollowed ground, and still it isn't enough. And I have heard it, a sweet harmonica and guitar band, over-amplified, bleeding into the city streets. And I have felt it. A fear as I walked across a shrouded Tompkins Square, a wife divorcing me a continent away. And who will I tell this to, my tale of a city on fire? To the wind, and to the wind it is given.
Time to go home. Take a step onto a plane and disappear into thin air.